This morning, the woman from number 11, the Chancellor, is here alongside the Conservative leader. The economy seems stuck, the books look a mess, so what is Rachel Reeves going to do about that? And Kemi Badenoch says the Conservatives got things wrong, but miles behind. How can they start getting things right? You are quite the double act. Welcome back to you both. For reasons that will become clear, I wonder what your favourite Beatles song is, Rachel Reeves.
I'm more of a Beyonce person myself, Laura, but Hey Jude, I enjoy that song.
Well, you've all laid down the gauntlet for the Chancellor. So did President Trump, who told the global elite at Davos yesterday that change was coming to the economy, whether they like it or not. And the Chancellor does now seem to be changing her tune a bit. Getting the economy going is back to the top of the list. Meet Reeves in a rush.
I want to lead the most pro-growth, to grow the economy, the most pro-business treasury. Growth is our number one mission. The number one mission to grow the economy. Kickstart economic growth, the party of growth, grow our economy that our country has ever seen.
Well, however many times you've said it, Rachel Reeves, and you have said it a lot, the latest month of growth was only 0.1%. So how do you think the last 6 months have gone?
Well, our economy has essentially flatlined for more than a decade now. I don't believe that low growth is our destiny, though. I know that we can do so much better than that. My optimism for Britain has never burned brighter than it does now. And that's why we are going further and faster in removing those things that are blocking investment and blocking businesses from creating the wealth and prosperity in our country.
But business people, like Theo's just said, actually say things that you chose to do, like putting national insurance up, making it more expensive for employers to hire staff, that's shaken business confidence. Consumer confidence tumbled. Sainsbury's just this week cut 3,000 jobs just this week. Business optimism is at a 2-year low. And that's after your decisions over the last 7 months. So I ask you again, do you think the last 6 months have been a success?
When I became Chancellor of the Exchequer, I think that most people would recognise that the inheritance was pretty tough. Public finances were in an utter mess.
But this is about the impact of the decisions you took.
Yes, but those decisions were to put our public finances back on a firm footing. And the worst thing that I could have done in the budget was to have swept those problems under the carpet, pretend they didn't exist, and leave us in a situation where our public finances were precarious. Now, why do I say that would have been a risk? Because we've seen what's happened in the past, in the last few years, when governments have lost control of the public finances and interest rates and inflation go through the roof. That's no good for working families in Britain, but it's no good for businesses either. We've now stabilised the public finances, which means that we can go further and faster on that bedrock of stability to grow our economy.
Well, the debt is absolutely enormous, and
but we can now move on and grow our economy.
Well, borrowing is at its highest level for 4 years. The national debt is absolutely enormous,
and that's the debt that I inherited as Chancellor. Yes, we've got to get a grip of those problems with the public finances, but growth is also essential for that, because an economy that is growing is an economy that can service those debts, which is why economic growth is so important. But most of all, economic growth matters because that means more money in the pockets of ordinary working people in our country.
But if it was all going so well and everything had been perfect so far, why are you shifting your tone? I think viewers will hear that you are shifting your tone. You are talking much more now about optimism, ripping up red tape, those kinds of things. And you're even easing off on your plans to make it harder for wealthy non-doms to do business here. Did you make a mistake in underestimating the number of wealthy people who create jobs and wealth here who would leave the UK because of what you did?
Well, first of all, you just played some clips of me speaking during the general election campaign when I was Shadow Chancellor, in my first speeches in Parliament. And on all those occasions, I said growth is the number one mission. So that's always been the number one mission of this government. But the first thing to be able to grow the economy is you've got to return stability to the economy. We did that in the budget, and we're now tackling those things that are stopping investment coming by reforming our economy, ripping up the planning system. Just today, we're announcing more changes to get housing built, particularly around commuter railway stations, to help businesses access a skilled workforce, to help more people onto the housing ladder, and to ensure that more people can take up those good jobs paying decent wages.
But I'll ask you again, did you make a mistake, or did you underestimate the number of wealthy people who might pack up from the UK because of the decisions that you make? Because you've changed your mind on the rules you were going to bring in for non-doms.
It's a basic principle for me, Laura, that people who make their home in Britain should pay their taxes here. And under this government, people will. We're getting rid of the non-domicile status in the tax system. What we announced this week is around the temporary repatriation facility, which is enabling people, including those who have been non-doms, to bring money into this country from abroad without paying punitive rates of tax.
So you shifted your position.
That doesn't cost UK taxpayers any money. This is not going to result in any dent in the public finances, but it does make it easier for people to bring money in from overseas in a way that the previous government didn't permit.
But did you get it wrong because you've changed your mind?
We're making some changes to one part of the way in which very wealthy people from abroad are taxed. But it is a principle of this government. And actually, the previous government also made changes around non-dom rules. That if you make Britain your home, you should pay your taxes here. But we want to be an attractive place for some of the wealthiest and most talented people around the world. It's why when we publish our immigration white paper later this year, we're going to be consulting on visas for the highest skilled, particularly in sectors like AI and life sciences, to ensure that Britain is a welcoming place for global talent.
What about a welcoming place for people who've had businesses here for hundreds of years, many of them family farms? Your controversial inheritance tax proposals for farms, we now know, are only penciled in to raise £500 million. Now, of course, that's a huge amount of money for any normal person. In terms of government spending, that is tiny, and you've shaken a whole sector. You've made farmers very unhappy. We had an email from Arabella Solway, a family farmer, who wrote to us last night saying everybody now has to put aside anything they earn to counter the fear of the inheritance tax bill that may hit them at an unknown time. They're not investing in farms, not buying new equipment.
Well, let me answer those questions directly. In the most recent year of tax data, 40% of the benefit of agricultural property relief went to just 7% of estates. 37 estates got more than £100 million worth of tax relief. That is not affordable and it's not fair. Agricultural property relief will still be a more generous system of inheritance tax than anyone else pays. You pay at just half the rate. And unlike everybody else, you'll have 10 years to pay that tax bill, interest-free, something, again, that no one else
was it worth it for £500 million
well, you know,
to
Laura,
shake a sector? Also, the supermarkets have gone public and said this is an issue. It might have an impact on the food
Laura,
supply.
I had to take decisions to raise taxes
so it was
at
worth
the budget to put our public finances on a firm footing. Those tax changes were the right changes, because otherwise we'd be on this programme talking about what tax changes would we have to bring in the future to stabilise the public finances. I've now drawn a line under the economic and fiscal mismanagement of the previous government. Our sums add up in a way that they didn't with the plans I inherited from the previous government, and we are now cracking on doing the things on regulation, on planning, on AI, on pensions and capital markets reform to make Britain the best place in the world to grow and start a business and to bring in inward investment, creating good jobs, putting more money in people's pockets.
And you are visibly going to start doing a big push, a much more overt push to get things done. But there have been all sorts of projects, public projects, sitting on the shelf, not just for the 7 months since you've been in charge, but also for years. Look, there are some of the ones, viewers around the country might spot things near them. There are all sorts of projects that it's been blatantly obvious that for years need a shove to get on with. Why is it taking you 7 months to realise you have to put your foot down?
Well, we've already called in and signed off a number of planning decisions on onshore wind, on housing developments, on data centres, more decisions in the first 6 months than the previous government took in the last year to unlock investment in a whole range of sectors. If the challenge is to go further and faster, absolutely, that is what we are doing. Just today, we're changing the rules to make it easier to build homes around train stations. That's something that Andy Burnham has been trying to do in Greater Manchester, but it's too hard to do that today. We want to go further and faster, make sure that people can get on the housing ladder, make sure we're building the infrastructure so we can grow our economy so that people are better off.
There's an interesting point though here, because you and your colleagues sat in that chair all through last year saying we are ready to hit the ground running as soon as we get into power. We're brilliantly prepared. We know exactly what we're going to do. you're now 7 months in, and actually there are an awful lot of things that you're now saying, well, yes, we have to get on, we have to go further and faster. Were you too slow to begin with? Do you admit that?
Well, some of these things require legislation, and we're just about to introduce the Planning and Infrastructure Bill. The consultation on the pension reforms we want to bring in closed last week, so we can bring forward that legislation. But, you know, we want to crack on. We've been in opposition for 14 years. Already, Angela Rayner, Ed Miliband, Heidi Alexander have signed off planning decisions in their areas, planning decisions that have been sitting on the desks of previous ministers. A solar wind farm in Cambridgeshire had been on the desks of ministers since 2021. Ed Miliband signed that off in his first month in office. That will create secure, homegrown and cheap energy. There is no reason why it took 3 years to get that decision across the line. It's now a decision this government has made to have cheap, secure energy, more good jobs in Britain.
And the last time I checked, to go further and faster around the world, you need to get on a plane. So are you going to go further and faster and approve another runway at London's Heathrow this week?
I'm not going to comment on speculation on that. But
Chancellor,
we have already...
It's not speculation. It's our viewers asking the Chancellor, who knows exactly what you're going to do, what you are going to do. It's not speculation. So let me put it this way. Would you correct me if we said here on the BBC News, Rachel Reeves is likely to announce Heathrow expanding this week?
Well, you'll see the plans when we set them out. But already this government has signed off expansion at London City Airport and Stansted Airport. Both of those decisions, again, were decisions that the previous government had stalled. We're getting on and delivering. That will be good for investment and trade in our country, and also good for families wanting to go on cheaper holidays as well. So we're getting on and delivering, whether it's on transport, energy, data or housing.
OK, I think that was a pretty big wink to it. What bit of this do you disagree with? Your colleague Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London, said some time ago that the decision to allow Heathrow will have a damaging impact on air quality, noise and London's ability to achieve net zero. What bit of that don't you agree with?
Well, a lot has changed in terms of aviation. A sustainable aviation fuel is changing carbon emissions from flying. There's huge investment going on electric planes. And also a third runway will mean that instead of circling London, flights can land at Heathrow. So a lot has changed in aviation, and sustainable aviation and economic growth go hand in hand. We're an open trading economy. We need to bring investment in. But I believe that clean energy, that reducing our carbon emissions are good for economic growth. We can do the two together.
There will be a third runway then. You've more or less just said that.
Well, we'll announce our plans in due course, but already we've signed off expansion at Stansted and City Airport. You
mentioned there sustainable air fuel. Now, if you really want to grow the economy, if you really want to invest in new technologies, why are you going to let the Grangemouth refinery in Scotland go to the wall? It's one of the places in the country that could make sustainable air fuel. Nowhere in the UK makes it right now. So why not step in to help there?
We have given money to that local authority, and we are working with the Scottish Government with a growth plan for Grangemouth. It's a very difficult situation that we find ourselves in, but we're working closely with the Scottish Government to support people in that area.
But it's due to close, and then at a later date there'd be fewer and different jobs as it makes a transition to become a different kind of plant, a fuel import depot. Those are skilled jobs in an industry where you could build a new one with sustainable aviation fuel. If you want the economy to grow and to create good jobs, isn't that exactly what you should be doing?
But we need to partner with business to create those good jobs paying decent wages. It's why we've invested, for example, alongside with BP and Equinor in Teesside and Merseyside in carbon capture and storage to support some of our energy intensive industries like ceramics and cement and glass making, to preserve those jobs, to create new jobs in Britain. There are big opportunities as we decarbonise the economy to bring good jobs, given our industrial heritage, whether that's in Scotland and the north of England. And the good thing about these jobs is these are jobs in our former industrial heartlands and in our coastal communities. And we want to work, and we are working with businesses to unlock those jobs and growth opportunities.
Well, those are exactly the kind of jobs that might go in Grangemouth. But I just wonder how much of this new tone, optimism that you're really trying to emphasise today is down to the new man in the White House who's going to protect protect industry, get rid of rules, cut taxes. Are you taking lessons from Donald Trump?
Well, we want to shout loudly with business about everything our country has to offer. It's what I was doing in Davos last week. It's what I was doing when I went with a business delegation to unlock opportunities for financial services firms trading in China. We want investment to come to Britain. We have got some of the best businesses in the world, some of the most inspiring entrepreneurs, a talented workforce, some of the best universities in the world. And in sectors like life sciences, in AI and clean energy, we are global leaders.
So you're trying to make
we want
the
to
economy
shout
great
about that
again
as a government and work with businesses to unlock that opportunity. And there's huge opportunities in the United States as well.
But do you want to make the economy great again? I mean, are there lessons you think you can learn from the way that Donald Trump is setting about his new administration?
Well, no one is going to shout about all of the amazing things about a country, apart from the government and the businesses in a country. I'm going to do that for Britain. We've got unique strengths. We've got huge opportunities, and I'm determined to go further and faster on delivering those for Britain.
Here's one of the dilemmas where you want to encourage a new industry but also protect an existing one. You know, we're going to hear a bit later from Paul McCartney, because ministers are mulling whether to allow supercomputers, AI, as it gets incredibly sophisticated, to skim content from artists like him on the internet without paying copyright. There are lots of very serious concerns about this in the creative industries. Not just Paul McCartney, but Sir Elton John has come out against this idea in one of the newspapers this morning. Would you be willing to listen to those concerns, to have those artists into number 11 and sit down and try to work out what to do?
The government are looking at copyright rules. We've got to get the balance right. We have got an amazing creative industry sector in the UK, one of the fastest growing sectors in the economy. And we want to support artists to make sure that they are properly rewarded for the content that they create. But I don't think that is incompatible with attracting AI companies to invest in data centres and compute facility here in the UK. And unless we get that investment, we're going to miss out on big opportunities, not just for big firms, but also to make sure that smaller businesses can use new technologies to improve their productivity and improve their wages in their sectors.
But would you, as the Chancellor in charge of the economy, have them into number 11 to listen to their concerns? Because at the moment, there is very significant concern right across the creative industries that these proposals, as they stand, could do lasting damage.
I've met with Elton John. I'm very happy always to meet with great British entrepreneurs and creatives to talk about how our economy can work better for them. But I don't think we should see these things as either or. We've got to support our creative industry. It's a fast-growing growth sector in the UK. It's part of our modern industrial strategy. But there are huge opportunities in the jobs and the industries of AI. It's why just a couple of weeks ago, the Prime Minister launched our AI action plan to ensure that we can attract those frontier businesses to the UK, but also ensure that smaller businesses can boost their productivity
it's
too.
An interesting dilemma, and unlikely to be the last for the government as you balance the risks and the opportunity. I want to just finally to talk a bit about what happened in Southport. Now, obviously, it was incredibly distressing, sensitive case. Everybody has been shocked by the details this week and, of course, appalled by the original events. But one of the issues here that the government itself is raising today, your colleagues, the Home Secretary and the Tech Secretary, have written to the online platforms saying, take down some of the harmful material that the killer had watched. If the companies don't do that, what will you as a government do?
Well, first of all, what happened in Southport and the grief that the families that have lost their beautiful children, and also those children who did not lose their lives but will forever remember those scenes that they saw unfold. My heart goes out to all of them, and we've got to learn lessons, which is why there's going to be a public inquiry to make sure we understand what went wrong and why this evil man was not caught and dealt with sooner. On the issue around content online, it's totally unacceptable the fact that the killer, before he went on to commit those horrific crimes, was able to access really easily on some of the online platforms such hateful material. And those companies have got a moral responsibility to take that content down and make it harder for people to access it. Already, in some countries around the world, including Australia, their companies have taken it down. So they can do that. We are asking them to do that. We've also introduced the online safety bill. Those rules will come in March, but there's nothing stopping the companies taking down that material now. They've got a moral responsibility to do so. But the Online Safety Act has provisions in it to ensure that these things happen. But let's not wait until then. We don't need legislation to stop these from happening. These companies can, and they should, take that material down now.
OK. Chancellor Rachel Reeves, it's always great to have you with us in the studio. Thank you very much indeed for your time this morning.